This is the Hot Take Hockey Podcast with your hosts, Lucas and John Viveiros.
And with rumors that Carter Hart his name's out there, what is your initial reaction to that? And Carter Hart maybe being shopped by the Flyers?
Yeah, I'll put my tinfoil hat on here, Lucas, for a second. Just say that it was very interesting that as literally I think Elliot Friedman said he was getting on a plane. So it's like all this stuff was like happening at the same time where it's like these rumors of a trade materializing, but also like Carter Hart potential trade. And I'm just like, what you just said is so fascinating to me is like LA, if you went across the league right now, all 32 teams, I mean, I could throw out probably a couple other teams like a Pittsburgh or an Ottawa, teams that are going to be looking for a goalie. But the LA Kings are right in there, as you just said. And to me, it's like the fact that this trade just went down and then like at the same time, Carter Hart trade, I'm just like, wouldn't it have been easier just to like make this trade humongous and get Carter Hart in there? So my thing is like, I think that would have just made it so much more complicated. So tinfoil hat, I'm saying one of two things. Either one, LA and Philly go, okay, we couldn't squeeze it into this deal. Let's just keep Columbus out of this. And now let's deal with each other and see if we can make it happen. That's my hot take of hot takes. I don't necessarily know if that's going to happen, but it was very interesting with the timing. Very interesting. And I think right now, if you're the Flyers perspective, I don't know if you are committing to this idea of rebuilding completely. If they keep doing stuff like this, then yeah. So I think Carter Hart's at the age where there was kind of some, I don't know, cold water thrown on it because there was so many reports saying, okay, we're not trading Carter Hart. He's the goalie of the future. And then these rumors come out again, and then a trade goes down involving the LA Kings. So just to answer your question in saying Carter Hart's value to me should require what Provorov just got. If that's market for a guy like that, I mean, Carter Hart should be easily getting like a first, 2 seconds, like a prospect. Like he should be getting a haul because in my eyes, in 2-3 years from now, Carter Hart's going to be easily a top 10 goalie consistently in this league. I mean, last year, numbers wise, on a very bad Flyers team, he was an above average goalie for starting netminder. So my eyes, Carter Hart, if I'm Philly, I'm keeping him. But if you can get an absolute crazy haul for the guy, I'm talking to LA, I'm talking to Ottawa, I'm talking to Pittsburgh, just to name 3 teams right there. And yeah, I mean, our boy Dubas might be, but again, it's like Philly between Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Philly and Pittsburgh.
I don't think rivals. I don't think rivals are trading between each other.
That's what I think that's that one. But it would be a good fit. But you know, I agree with you, John. Like I'm very high on Carter Hart. I've always thought he's one of the most gifted goalies in the league. Ever since he joined the NHL and saw him at a young age, I think they rushed him a little bit. Don't get me wrong, but with him being on a team that is weaker, it's definitely stunting him, and it's frustrating. It must be frustrating for him, no doubt. But I think if he was on a team that is a bubble team or a playoff team, like watch out, that has a good blue line in front of him. So I think his value's got to be tremendous. I'm bang on with you. I think it should be a first round pick. I think it should be a top prospect. You can't let this guy go for pennies on the dollar.
No. And
in an off season where Connor Hellebuyck could also be on the move with Winnipeg, maybe doing some interesting things. It's going to be interesting to see, between Carter Hart and Hellebuyck, sort of, how those deals look if they come to fruition in terms of who's more valuable. Yeah. Obviously, Carter Hart's got 1 year left on his deal. Then he's an RFA, so there's still team control with that. But another team that popped into my mind was Buffalo. I think Buffalo would be a tremendous fit, right, for Carter Hart. With them being on
Philly
the rise.
Could get also a young goalie back, like a Luukkonen or something. So that's another good show, Lucas.
But man, I think it's for the better that he gets traded, because the fact he's 24 is crazy to me. Like I remember when he first came in, and he's played on such a terrible Flyers team for too long now. Yeah. I want to save Carter Hart's career and get him out of there. So I'm hoping he gets dealt. But even Montreal, if Montreal wanted to get a little be ahead of their planning a little bit, come on, you don't see that one being interesting for Montreal, adding Carter Hart.
Maybe. I actually, you know what's funny? I had a Leaf fan. Sorry, I jump in the Leafs into this conversation really quickly too. I had a Leaf fan, so all this is coming out. I got a few DMs, but I got one from a Leaf fan going, asking me, John, would you do Samsonov and Nylander for Konechny and Hart if the Flyers come calling? And I actually, Lucas, I'm not gonna lie, I sat there for a second. I'm like, damn, I don't even know. Like that gets the conversation started.
It does.
That's not even like, I don't know. When I saw that, I was like, I can't lie. Again, love what Willie's been doing in the playoffs, but a Hart and Joe Wall tandem going forward would really intrigue me, like big time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And
But what
Konechny,
you're saying about Montreal, like that's also
Konechny,
interesting.
Konechny's got 2 years left. I know. Well, Konechny's a good conversation too in this whole Flyers discussion, because obviously the Flyers are going to be doing some bold things, and he's part of the conversation with that, right? And I think that does get my ears perked up, because you know what? I as much as I value William Nylander, he's got 1 year left. Konechny has 2. So you get 1 more year of control. Konechny brings a little bit of a different bite to your lineup. Not the same skill set from an offensive perspective, but as far as in the goaltending position, I think you're upgrading. As much as I like Samsonov, I can't just judge him off that 1 good year he's had on a good Leafs team, right? I still am going to, take my bets and go with the younger Carter Hart with the more talent there. So I actually do like that sort of deal. But yeah, for Montreal, what was you going to say about Montreal?
No, I was just going to say, like, Sam Montembeaul's looked like really good for them. But I was just going to say, in terms of like perspective for Montreal, like they're in like a similar situation to Philly, where they've got like a lot of vets and a lot of guys like under contract. The only scenario where I could see that working is like if Philly's just in a different mindset, where like they're not trying to go full rebuild, they're just trying to get like a different culture change. Then Montreal and Philly can make one of those moves where it's like 2 guys in, 2 guys out. What I just said about the Toronto, maybe that makes more sense for those teams. But again, I really do believe how Philly just made this move. I feel like it's going to have to be with a contender or a team like Buffalo, like you suggested, that like feels like they're that next step away from really competing, and a team that's willing to give up assets. And I feel like Buffalo's probably in that stage, and Buffalo's got a stupid amount of forward prospects that I'm sure Philly would look at and be like, okay, we'll take that guy. We'll take that guy. And I mean, yeah, if Buffalo was willing to give those pieces up, I think Buffalo and Philly could definitely be big trade partners. But to wrap up this convo and just quickly, because I feel like we have thrown out teams for Carter Hart potentially, I don't even know if this is like a good offseason to trade Carter Hart. Like I just wonder if maybe you just play out this year, and at the RFA status, if you can't figure out a contract, maybe you get to that point because you have team control on the guy. Because as you just mentioned, Connor Hellebuck, Thatcher Demko, John Gibson, and then all of the goalie free agents. Like there's so many goalie free agents in this market. And I'm just like, maybe it's just not the year to trade a guy like that, because there's so many other options. Like Buffalo could be like, screw you, we'll go to Winnipeg, or screw you, we'll go to Vancouver and give up less. So that is my only concern for a Philly Carter Hart trade. That, again, I go back to LA. I actually think LA would probably be the best, because they just, again, LA and Buffalo, they have a lot of prospects, but I don't know if it's the right offseason, man. I don't know. To me, that's a really tough trade to make. I think that's one of those ones where down the line, you're going to be like, if you didn't get like a stupid haul, you're going to be like, damn, big regrets.
Oh, absolutely. I think this Provorov one, Philly isn't going to look back on it and really think, damn, we made that deal, right? Even if Provorov pops off with Columbus, I think it was time to move on here. It wasn't really going to happen.
And there was rumors that he wanted out as well at times.
Yeah. Where Carter Hart, I mean, if you don't get that arm and a leg, this is one of those deals that could look sideways, and you could think for years, you're going to watch a guy win Vezina trophies and potentially, right, and just think, damn, we could have had him.
And honestly, man, I was going to say, like, too many teams have given up on goalies at like 24, 25, 26, and they end up popping off. And it's not like Carter Hart has been like give up worthy. Like, he's shown so well on a team that hasn't been good, and he's been probably only one of the few bright spots the last couple of years for this team at the age that he is at. I think if you look at Carter Hart in a couple of years, like, as I said, it also just really depends on Philly's timeline. If Daniel Briere looks at himself in the mirror and goes, okay, this team ain't going anywhere in 4 or 5 years, then the Carter Hart trade discussion is like very serious to have, because at the point of like being 30 years old, like that's a conversation. But if you think you can get this team to a playoff form in 3 years, 4 years, maybe even past that, sure. But I just think it's so early to give up on a guy that's shown that he's already there.
It's just, but if you want to lean into the full rebuild, you kind of have to move him, right? Because he's going to win you games. He's that good where he's going to win you games you didn't deserve to win. And so Philly with Carter Hart, I feel like can never be a bottom 3, bottom 4 team. Like he won't let them be that bad because he's that good of goaltender. So it's like, though I totally agree with you. I think there's no good time to trade Carter Hart because I think you're always going to lose the deal. Like, I actually believe that, but you're never really embracing the full rebuild unless you have, you do what Chicago did and you throw Mrazek because you're starting goalie, right? That's how you're truly tanked.
Well, if they're truly embracing the rebuild, I think they could get some crazy hauls for guys like Konechny, a guy like, so like that's the example would be like trading guys like Konechny and Lawton when their stock is, I mean, Konechny had a great year, so his stock's very high. Lawton showed that he can have a great role. And I mean, I forget who said it on the radio, but like someone was talking about like Lawton being a good piece for like the top 6 of the Flyers going forward. And it's like, I go back to like a Yanni Gore type, like Scott Lawton is that exact type of third line center you want for your Stanley Cup winning team, right? So I feel like, especially with the term and the cap hit I think is only like $3 million. I honestly, like, I would not be shocked if a team gave up a first round pick for Scott Lawton at that team controlling that cap hit. And that's what I'm saying. Like, those are the guys you move. A guy like Farabee, who's still very young and had a bad year, you don't trade a guy like that. Like, so the Flyers just gotta like, they got to maintain youth and being able to go in a different direction. So guys like Morgan Frost, Owen Tippett, Joel Farabee, you want to keep those guys going forward because they're young enough and there's progression there. Guys like Kevin Hayes, Scott Lawton, Travis Konechny, should be real consideration to move on. And I feel like Carter Hart's probably right in the middle of that, where it's like he's young enough, but at the same time, it's like, that timeline, and you really have to evaluate based on that. So, any other thoughts on Carter? I just feel like it's going to be such a tough deal to make. We could see some massive goalie trades this offseason, though.
Oh, I'm so excited for it, man. I feel like the teams that are in and calling on Hellebuck are going to be in on Hart, right? Like, whoever strikes out on the one is going to go for the other. And that's if Winnipeg elects to trade him. But I think the Jets are such a fascinating team too. I'm sure we can have a whole conversation about them one day. But Philly, overall Philly, I think they did well in this trade. It's going to be interesting to see how their roster sort of comes to shape with, it's slowly getting there in terms of freeing up cap space. I feel like this deal didn't really do that in the way because they took back 2 big contracts, or 2 contracts that sort of equal out. But I mean, the most valuable thing in the NHL when you're struggling and your team is near the bottom of the standings is cap space. So they got to try to make a little bit more of that and see what they can do in terms of getting rid of deals that are eating up that space, like Ristolainen maybe. But